Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Mike, aka Zero Obstacles Cosplay. Today we're going to be making a high Warlords battle mace from World of Warcraft, just in time for BlizzCon. Who's going with me? I know you are. Let's do this. Make sure you print out your pattern showing cut marks. You can use a like 0.005 overlap or whatever, usually the default for PDF, and put it together like a poster. The gray areas on there are going to be separate pieces, but we want to cut those out last. So cut the rectangles out full length, and we'll pattern those out, and then once we get down, we'll cut out the other one. Make sure when you're cutting out the patterns that you cut on the outside of the black lines. That way you'll have the correct size when you go to apply it to foam. I like to use a ruler, metal ruler or a yardstick, so I can cut perfectly straight lines. Once we have all of our pieces cut out, some of them had a hole in them, and we're just going to make sure that this fits over your piece of pipe. These things are never the same. Sometimes they're 1.25 inches on the outside, sometimes they're a little bigger. So if it doesn't fit, just trim it away until you have a nice snug fit on there. You can also wait and do this on a Dremel once you cut the pattern out in foam. Once you get to these pieces right here, we're just going to cut out the little hash marks right there. Little hash marks, just cut them out, and that's it. Make sure when you're on these triangles here that you do not cut the dotted lines there. Don't cut the dashed lines. Those will stay. That's where we're going to fold the foam later, so don't cut those. For this build, you're going to need 2 sheets of the puzzle mat foam, and you're going to get 8 of these, 1 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these guys traced on it. Also, you're going to get 1 of these, and then once that's done, you cut it and do 1 of these on the puzzle mat, and that'll be it for that. Everything else will go on to 6 mil. As you can see, most of it fit on 1, and just those 2 pieces on the other one. Make sure when we cut these little pieces out that we annotate exactly what it shows on there to include the dotted lines and the letters. It'd be hard to see with this dark, but we're going to do 2 each of each of these patterns, right? So that's 2 spikes of each type. And what we're going to end up with are these little shapes here. So we'll end up with these, hopefully. We're going to do some angle cuts, but we'll get to that in a minute. So just make sure you do 2 of each and copy it exactly how it is on the paper. Now that we've got these pieces cut out, we're going to go to the sanding belt and get all of this texture sanded off, because we're going to have to, where these lines are, we're going to want it to bend, and this texture is going to kill that. We're going to put little grooves in the back so it'll fold easier. But we'll come back up, and then we're going to angle cut all of these. Every edge of there needs to be cut like at a 45 so they come together. And we'll do that as soon as we get done sanding, so go sand your stuff and come back. Making sure you have a good sharp blade. We're going to start cutting angles, so take your pieces one at a time very carefully. Make sure the pattern is up so you can see it. You don't need all your knife out, just a little bit. And you're going to start at the corner here. If you can see that, probably not. And you're going to start at this corner. And you're going to hold your knife at a 45-degree angle. See, you got it straight up. Right there. And then 45. And we're just going to cut through the whole thing. So I'm going to try and see if I can do this on camera where you can see it here. Just 45 straight down, using that corner as a guide, and just kind of lock your wrist in. When you get to the end, make sure you push the foam in a little bit, or it's gonna want to pull. I mean, it is flexible. And you're just gonna do the 2 sides. You don't have to do the bottom, just the sides. The bottom can be flat on all these pieces. So 45-degree angle, nice and slow down the corner using a sharp knife, and when you get to the end, just push a little bit. You'll see it starting to curve a little bit. just kind of press against it with your thumb, making sure you don't cut yourself. Be real careful. Your knife needs to be sharp. If it's not sharp, it's going to pull, and you're going to get weird, ugly lines, but those are pretty clean. You can see how clean those are. There's no tears, no nothing. Just nice, good corners. So you need to do that on all the pieces. You can leave the bottoms, but get everything else. We got these angles cut. So on the front you got these dotted lines. We're going to take ourselves a Sharpie here, and we're going to transfer that to the back. So just kind of draw a little line, and then you can just draw a straight line. It doesn't have to be dotted on the back. Because on the backs of these triangles where there's dots, we're going to get our sharp knife, really sharp, and we're just going to go down. So this is 6 mil, so there's not there. We're just going to put a line straight down, but we're not going to go all the way through. And then we're going to come in at an angle, crossing that line we just made at an angle. Again, not going all the way through. And then just pull the stuff out. If you have your X-Acto, you can use that to kind of clean it up a little bit. Just going to fold it over and kind of cut it out. So you get that. So we didn't go all the way through, but what that's going to do, it's going to give us a good line without making it like bend. So we don't have to have we don't have to seal that. It'd be a nice line. So now we're going to take our contact cement. I'm using Weldwood. You can use Barge, whatever you got available to you. You could even use hot glue if you want, but I highly recommend the contact cement just because it lasts a lot longer and it won't melt in the heat if you're you know, at AX and it's 110 degrees. So I don't use a brush because I end up throwing those away. I use a little piece of foam and I just kind of dip it in and keep it kind of clean. And then just all the edges that we just cut, we're gonna apply the cement nice and thin. So once this is on, we're going to let it dry fully. It should be tacky but not sticky, right? So you'd be able to touch with your fingers and you're not going to get like strings on it. So you can do 2 coats too. Once it's completely dry, you can add another coat and let it dry. We didn't heat seal this, so the glue we just put on there is kind of soaking in. If you put another coat on, you won't have any issues. Or you can heat seal it and do 1 coat and pretty much get the same effect. So, all right, our glue's dry. And our little valleys are cut in. For the 2 circles and the long piece, we're going to glue the piece together like this. And then these we're going to do, I already heat shaped these. We're going to turn them upside down and do a 45 angle cut, and then you're going to heat up on your knee or baseball or whatever you got to make 2 cups like that. All right. So once you get them shaped like that, you're basically ready to go once you get it glued. So we'll just wait for this to set up and we'll come back and next step we'll put that together. While we're waiting on that, we're going to take the 2 rectangles and we're going to start heat shaping them, which I've already done a little bit, heated them up. And we're going to get some glue on these, get these guys ready to go. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm doing these one at a time, but usually I would have all my pieces ready to go for glue that needed it, just because like time management. You got a couple things going at once. That way, when one set of glue is drying, you know you're getting ready for the next one. So there's no point in doing anything one at a time. It'd take you forever to build that way. Okay, these pieces pieces should be long enough to where they wrap around without being too tight. I say should, but everyone's, like I said, everybody's PVC pipes isn't always exactly the same with the sizes. So sometimes if it's a little short, you can cut like little angles on here, just real slight angle down there, down the line here, just to make it made up better. Or you might have to just cut a bigger piece or a smaller piece. So just kind of wrap it around initially, eyeball it, do a little piece first, and the big piece. So we've got this put together. We've got a cylinder here, a couple holes in it. My glue's still a little bit sticky. If you do it too soon, you'll get like little spider webs in between there. Kind of looks like natto if you've ever eaten natto. Anyway, so we've got this cylinder here, and we got to put these in there. We want to check though before we start throwing glue in there. So just set it in, and mine's a little bit too small. But while you're working it here, you can kind of undo the damage that you've done. Basically, if you've over-shaped it, you made it too small. So we'll just push them down and take some of that concave out. Just let it go back a little bit to its natural shape. You can heat it up again if you need to. So we got our hot glue gun out, letting the glue heat up. So you can see I've worked out the bevels to where they fit in there a lot tighter and kind of hold themselves in. You just want to keep working the foam until you get something really close to that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to basically real carefully 4-point each of these in and let it dry. So we're going to just carefully kind of drop a little bit in each corner. Just let that dry right there. While we're in there, we're letting that dry, we're going to get all this stuff put together, right? So carefully, this small one, you can heat it up again if you want. And we're just going to squeeze it together, almost fold it in half, and get those edges to touch. Just like that. And you're going to do this with the other one too. Once the glue is dry, you'll see, it doesn't look too good, doesn't matter. We're going to turn it over and just do the same thing. You know, you kind of want to just make a nice even bead around it, so it almost looks like it was welded on. If you have huge holes, that's fine. The glue will eventually fill in after a couple times, but don't try and do it all at once, because you're just going to basically pump hot glue into the middle of this thing and wasting glue. So you'll see I put this on the handle, back to this, and you're going to have it, it's going to spread a little bit. That's fine. This is the inner layer. This one's a little bit easier because it's bigger. You just have to hold it down and go. And you can see I've glued all these. These are all ready to get stuck together too. So at this point, we're just going to do a bunch of putting stuff together. So what we're going to do, we're going to get everything nice and sharp. And then we're going to cut out all these shapes, except we're not going to cut them out. We're going to cut them, and then we're going to push them back 50%, right? So we're going to cut them out, push them, cut it, push it, cut it, push it, get it all back. Then we're going to flip it over, and we're just going to glue it. You can pull it out, put a bead on it, stick it back in. That way we have that nice texture in there, all right? Finished. Here's what the back looks like. All right, so that's just one of them. Actually, real time. I don't even know how long that took me. Maybe 45 minutes to get all those cuts and then glue it. So that's what we're going for right there. So hard to see here. This is what we're doing with the handle with these two pieces that we made. So you'll notice these are overlapping slightly here and here. We want that to do that a little bit. About half an inch maybe. And then when you push this down carefully here, you'll notice it doesn't sit. So what we're going to have to do is kind of sketch and Dremel out that curve. Alright, so we're going to just kind of make that so it sits flush. We want this part here to be touching this part here. So you can measure it straight up with a ruler, and that'll let you know how far down you got to go here. And just, you know, kind of eyeball it. Start off small with your Dremel. and then you can get in deeper as you go, and then you just keep trying to make sure it fits. All right, on our base pieces here, we've beveled down the bottoms. Okay, so, and we've also, you can see how that's going to work there. So basically you're going to sit like that, which is what you should have, hopefully. The other thing we did on the smaller piece, it's optional, bevel out a little, or Dremel out a little bit on the inside there, because when you wrap the handle, this will cover that nicely and keep it clean looking. We've got both of the long rectangles cut out, glued together at the ends, like this. And then we Dremel cut and angle cut the edges here, because it's going to come to a very fine point, so you want to make sure those are very long, like that. You can see those. We've also sanded and cut our spikes to shape, and we've kind of shaped this up a little bit for the bottom. Alright, so basically took 2 scrap pieces of 10 mil, cut some nasty ass holes in them, measured it out, and glued it just like that. That'll give it a little bit more support. We're going to be able to really glue in that handle. So once those are dry, we'll get the handle glued in. Nothing fancy here, just some hot glue. So I just threw a big old gob of hot glue in there and just glued this portion. I did not glue this one, I just glued this one. We want this one to be able to adjust from when we put the other piece on. Okay, we got both sides of those glued on. Hopefully it was not as stressful for you as it was for me. I do have a lot of cleanup to do with the edges here. I'm gonna hit those with a Dremel. I ended up having to hot glue it's so hard to see. So you can see how nasty this part is here. I had to hot glue in there. Now when I clean that up with a Dremel, you won't notice it, and then we'll quick seal it. But other than that, for what it's worth, we got ourselves a nice looking mace. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to hot glue this thing on. So we want to go seam to seam here. That's less cleanup we got to do. So we're just going to kind of slide this down, get it to right about there, and we're just going to bathe this thing in hot glue. The other option here is, which you can turn this upside down here and then just put it on here. You don't want to go too far over the side, so if you put it up and take a look, there's not a lot. Oh god, you can't even see it. I apologize. There's not a lot touching here, right? You can see that this from here to here, so you only have a couple inches, so you don't want to drown this whole thing. So but you don't want to get all that surface area taken care of. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it this way. Hopefully you can see this. Just kind of hold it in place. Don't push too hard. We're not trying to collapse the inside. We just want to hold it. The next step will be these guys here. So before we even glue this on, we're going to bead up around there to get the hot glue in there, around that part. Got hot glue on this part here. This is hot glued to here. And this is hot glued to the handle and here. So those are in. We got a pretty good, it's pretty stable right here with the hot glue being dry, right? So we have a mace. You can beat the crap out of somebody now. But we're not done yet. We got to finish this. We got to get some spikes on it. I went ahead on the bottom of the handle here, and I found the 4 sides that I liked to where when I put the spikes on, they're pretty even. So I'm going to go ahead and contact cement these 4 spikes onto the areas that I marked to where it's going to be flush on the bottom, but it's going to stick out a little bit on top. All right, so I ended up going with hot glue on the big spikes. Yeah, kind of this is really wide, so it starts to bow. So I had some pretty good gaps, so I just kept filling 1 layer at a time. I'm gonna do a little bit more filling on the edges here, but they're on for the most part. And I glued this guy onto the bottom. So the only thing we have left to glue on foam-wise is the wrap for the handle, which we're going to use 2mm. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm just going to cut strips with the ruler. And when we go around the handle, I'm going to tuck it up into here where I already cut. So I'm going to overlap it by about 50% and tuck it in there. I'm going to start gluing. And then as I wrap down, I'm going to pull it fairly tight, and I'm going to do 50%. Quick seal all this white stuff here. Get some water, paper towel, and just fill in all the cracks that you want, as deep as you want to go. We're going to cover it in Mod Podge, 3 or 4 coats of this. We've got our mace plasti dipped. We've got some primer on it. We've sanded it, and we went ahead and primed it again. I used a black primer and filler, and today we're going to be painting. We're going to base coat with a Liquitex heavy body iridescent rich bronze, and we'll be doing the red parts with a Naphthol crimson.